How can charitable organizations build a sustained culture of philanthropy? Jim Langley, president of Langley Innovations, says, "Speak with your donors and listen to what they have to share." In this video series, Jim shares decades of expertise and his commitment to helping institutions develop the most effective strategies to build broader and more lasting communities of support. If you're a fundraiser, tune in now. Every video with Jim is a masterclass. Hello and welcome. I'm Susan Axelrod. If you raise money for a cause you believe in, this series was made for you. In the philanthropic sector, we talk constantly about what we need from donors. We set goals, build campaigns, measure metrics. But Jim Langley, one of the most respected voices in advancement today, is asking a different question. What should organizations pledge to their donors before donors are ever asked to pledge their support? As a fundraiser, consultant, coach, and trainer myself for 40 years now, I was intrigued by this. Over 5 conversations, Jim and I are going to unpack 5 ideals that he believes should govern every fundraising organization, not as aspirations, but as commitments. By the end, you'll have a framework you can take back to your team, your board, and your donors. Jim Langley is president of Langley Innovations, a philanthropic consultancy and training firm with decades of research, thousands of donor interviews, and a track record of transforming how institutions think about the people who support them. Jim, hello and welcome. Good to see you again.
Hi, Susan. Great to see you as always.
This conversation is going to be a good one. Before we get into the 5 ideals that transform philanthropy, we're talking about the Fundraisers pledge. Set the stage for us. What is the fundamental problem you keep seeing in how organizations approach fundraising that led to the 5 ideals?
Well, the big problem, the overriding problem, is a gap between what people, organizations hope for from their donors and what donors hope for from the organizations they give to. So it feels like 2 languages being spoken, and organizations trying to turn up the volume in hopes that donors ultimately understand them. And I would assert is the case in any good relationship that each party has to be better at listening to the other. But in this case, I think organizations have to step away from marketing platforms, from concepts like they should do something, and meet donors in a more authentic space and talk about imagine if we could pursue these goals, these objectives together. I think too much of the nonprofit world has become too corporate and too stuck in the madman era in which it's trying to advertise its way into prominence rather than convene groups of kindred spirits and find ways together, which is at the heart of philanthropy.
I mean, basically, you're talking about translation. I love this translating from us to them, them to us. I really
Yes.
love this. The translation from our thinking they should to we could together.
Exactly.
Right?
Interestingly enough, Susan, the word interview comes from the Old French meaning to see one another. So I think you can see why I've stressed interviews all my career, because that's the objective, to see one another, to see ourselves in each other, and to form a bond of shared purpose.
I mean, these thousands of interviews that you've conducted with donors are just rich. They're just a rich lesson that create guide rails for us to go forward in a truly authentic way, understanding their language and their needs, right?
That's right. And then when you look at what so many nonprofits are facing today, a loss of trust, a loss of donors, an erosion of the donors they have, you say maybe we could arrest this By asserting a pledge first, rather than asking donors to make the first pledge, we could come forward with a pledge that says, this is what we pledge to you, that we will lead by example. We'll make the first pledge and hope that through this dialogic approach, you will be far more comfortable than making a pledge back that will be a shared pledge of what we could do together. I think expecting people to pledge their eternal fealty and all their hard-earned money to you without you making a pledge to them is a little bit like someone going to the wedding altar and one person saying, I do, and the other saying, I'm thinking about
Jim, full transparency, I
it.
have told you this is so amazing. It's such an amazing concept. And I really truly want to say you are the right person to bring the fundraisers pledge to the forefront today. As we are living in a world that's difficult with authenticity, you are offering any fundraiser, any institution that raises money from people an opportunity to really take the lead and make that pledge first. I absolutely love this. So today we're talking about the 5 most important ideals of fundraising, the 5 most important ideals of fundraising. So this is a big claim, Jim, to say the 5 ideals. And I want to get started. This series is intended to be just a brief visit with the 5 ideals. And I already can't wait for people to work with you to dig deeper. The first ideal is about shared purpose. And this is the pledge, your pledge. We pledge not to ask about what you might do for us, but how our values align and how we choose to act on them together. So, this idea of building a stronger community of shared purpose sounds simple, but it really is a departure from how most fundraising conversations actually begin, as we were just saying. So, can you walk us through what this actually looks like in practice?
Most fundraising is still rooted in advertisement and marketing. It's rooted in trying, as I kiddingly say, trying to wow a donor into philanthropic submission. It worked in a certain way in a certain time because trust in institutions was sky high. Americans felt very good about their institutions based on performance and that their institutions were serving them. But as that started to erode, the advertising started to ring a little false. And so we've moved from an era of where we would try to promote people who are promote certain ends for people who already trusted us to now we must be more attentive to a trust building approach to fundraising, both for current donors to stem the loss of donors, to remind them that we have these shared values, and to start to attract donors who may be on the fence or looking for more satisfying ways to give. So what we want to do in this first pledge is to say, we're going to turn off the marketing machine and we're going to find ways to work together. We may not be able to talk to every person out there, but we're going to survey current donors. We're going to survey prospective donors. We're going to survey lapsed donors. And we're going to start listening and getting much closer to where our purposes align and go from there. And so I think just sending the signal, Susan, that we're not coming at you as this persuasive machine, but as this authentic group of people who are trying to make a difference and would love to find partners in that pursuit, will set a tone that will cause people to go, ah, and let down their guard and realize you don't have to worry about being ambushed by a fundraiser. You don't have to worry about somebody sneaking up on you, that there is a way to raise money that starts first with an alignment of values. And from there, if our values are aligned, how might we work together going forward?
I mean, first, I just want to say, wow, you're just calling this out. Honestly, there's something to be said for being a wise elder, if you forgive the use of the term, Jim, but I feel that deeply along with you. You're really calling out something today, and I hope that young professional fundraisers will hear and
Yes.
listen to what's being said, that the need today is for authenticity, and that you have that in you, and that this pledge calls for that uh, connecting in shared purpose with your donor. So I have an example I'd like to share. You can tell me if this applies. I
Please.
worked I worked for a community hospital, and one of the highest level executives in the region was a big donor to the hospital. And sadly and tragically, he died right after he retired.
Mm.
And his wife was, I worked with them and I became close to his wife. It was a shock. And she got breast cancer after he died. And you can imagine, she was on the older side and how difficult this was. The breast cancer unit at the hospital became like her family, if you will. Not that she didn't also have family, but her husband was gone. And the people at the breast cancer unit became trusted to her. And she got well. And a bit later, we were renovating the breast cancer unit. And so I spoke with her because it was such a natural alignment. I wasn't really asking her for money. In our shared thesis, Jim, I was giving her an opportunity to use her resources to do something huge. And she said yes. And she thanked me. Just as a side note, for someone like this, Jim, she wasn't the person. Her husband was the donor. So I had to teach her about this. And then she got involved in the entire renovation, all the way down to selecting the bathrobes for those changing rooms that you go in. And it feels like this is an example of that aligned purpose. Does that work for you?
It does, Susan. And to the young fundraisers, you can achieve real stature in families and with individuals as a trusted counselor. And it goes back to the first impression that you make. Are you values driven? Are you driven by connections? Do you eat, sleep, and drink mission? This is what donors notice about effective fundraisers, is that they are so dedicated themselves to the cause and to the institution. And what I love about your story is about how involved she became. And I would describe that at the end of the process, she became a co-owner of that initiative. She was fully immersed in it. So when you do it the right way, you not only have a gift, you have a partnership, and you've created something which is co-ownership of that institution going forward, which again is incredibly important to the long-term health of any institution, is to have a lot of ownership of its purpose and to look forward to making it stronger and stronger.
I mean, oh, this is so good, Jim. I want to say that it is true. The industry leads with the ask, and I hate it. Capital T, capital A, they talk about the ask,
Yeah,
and you lead with alignment.
yeah.
And I love everything about that. And I really do know, and I've experienced myself, that when people learn this ideal, when they commit to this first pledge, it will change things quickly in the way they go about doing their business. Next time, we're going to explore the second ideal, which is the pledge to create lifelong partnerships, not transactions, as we've been discussing, and I hope people will come along. But before we end, Jim, you created something called the Fundraisers Pledge. Now, I'm putting it up here. It's a document, and the writing is small, but it can be seen. And it starts with, before we ask, here is what we pledge. And I wanted to ask you if you could just share the idea of this with us.
I think it'll be so reassuring, Susan, if fundraisers had this in their hand, they could send it in advance of a visit. If organizations posted it in their hallways next to where they recognize donors, that if we could start being more forward with that pledge, we would start to address those trust issues. I believe that everything is about leaders, and leaders understand you start with example. You never ask someone to do something for you before you do it for them. So the pledge is a proactive way of building trust at a time when trust is becoming so important to the philanthropic proposition.
Gosh, I have a lot more to say, but we're going to keep this brief today. And over this 5-part series, we'll continue to talk about the erosion of donors' trust. We'll continue to talk about the pledge. But I want to share an opportunity with our viewers today, and that is you have something called A Day with Jim. They have an opportunity to meet in person with you to learn about this construct for the organization, to learn about your other construct, the 3 Bs: to believe, to belong, to better, or to review any of the materials, the books you've written, or whatever. How can people access you for A Day with Jim?
Please contact Amy at Langley Innovations, AMY, at Langley Innovations, and ask more about this initiative. And if you'd like, how to book it. We're looking at Thursdays in June and July, and we'll go forward from there. And it's a great opportunity, as you suggest, Susan, to dig in to the things that we're just touching upon in these videos.
So good, Jim. We'll talk more about this in another video as well. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Susan.